doing these videos with this mask on is fucking hilarious to me. So I'm going to do it more often. And also it gives me an excuse not to look at my face. Because I don't like looking at my face. It may sound strange coming as someone who's done nothing but put my face on the internet since like 2013. But hey, I'm inconsistent. We're all inconsistent. It's a big contradiction. The world is a big contradiction. You're a contradiction, and so am I. Um, I don't know. People, it's like when I do speeches. I have social anxiety, and yet I enjoy giving speeches. What can you imagine that? Can you imagine enjoying giving speeches to people, but at the same time having social anxiety on an individual level? It's very strange. YouTube is a character. We're all characters here. Regardless, COVID-19, the coronavirus, the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, Lord, viruses. Everyone's getting sick. Everyone's dropping dead. The schools are closed. The people are in their homes. And life right now, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hand, is not that different from what it's always been for me. I've stayed in my house pretty much my whole life. I've been doing quarantine before quarantine was even known as a concept. I'm the OG quarantine person. And so this is not a new thing for me by any means. I tend to prefer living this way. And so when the coronavirus came about, and I had sort of predicted that, we were going to have this mounting death toll and that the United States wasn't going to do their part in containing it, my enthusiasm towards the virus was mainly for political reasons. Like, I was talking about stuff like population control, that, I think it's ultimately a good force in the world if the older people, the boomers who are known for enforcing all of these retarded social rules and stuff, just kind of died off. And on an individual level, I think that's a terrible thing to say to the people who have like family members, for example, who are older. I don't want those people to drop dead because I can look at that person individually and I can like have empathy towards them and say, okay, this is clearly a bad thing that you would lose a family member here. And I don't want to say that that's an acceptable loss because it never is. But what I am trying to say is that there's a lot of old people who their family hates them. Like their family does not like those old people. And there are a lot of old people as well that their family would even be happy if they dropped dead. And a lot of old people that, at least from my worldview, from my perspective, that the world would be a better place as a result of them dropping dead because they have a worldview and a mindset that continues to perpetuate a social and economic system that's harmful for people like me or people who have similar views to me. And so it's a matter of nuance. Like, obviously, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, all of the old people dying is this beautiful thing or whatever. No, it's terrible. But I do think that there are things to be gained from that. And in my video, I want the coronavirus for Christmas. That's what I was talking about. I don't think it's like a pure force for good or anything like that, but I do think that that's a positive. And moreover, the amount of connection that people have been able to get through or have been able to bind within themselves through this corona pandemic is really a beautiful thing. You see all of these people who, every single day of their lives, they went to work, they went to school. That was their mode of being. That was the engine that chugged them through life. That was their direction. And they didn't really understand anything else before that. It was just work and school, and that's how they lived their life. That was the basis of everything that kept them sane. And now they're isolated and they're forced to grapple with the fact that they're isolated, and they can see things from someone like me's perspective. They can see that all of us are isolated together, and now I can sort of kind of at least understand what people like me are going through, like people like Star are going through. And everyone for once in our lifetime, or in my lifetime at least, everyone is on the same page in the sense that we're all bound to these specific conditions that we must preside in order to stop the spread of the virus. We're all quarantined and social distanced, etc. And that forces us to grapple with the same base of operations. We're all starting at the same starting point. And it's much easier to cooperate and understand other people or be understood by other people when you're all coming from the same place, because we're not starting in opposite directions, like we all are at this place of being isolated. And it's easier to connect over that because we're all doing the same thing. Um, and so, from the one angle of like, people who would have never experienced living this way are now living this way, and they understand a little bit more what it's like for someone like me, or they completely misunderstand, and it leads to a harmful worldview of hating meats and stuff. Whatever, we'll just forget those people exist. Um, and the fact that like we can all connect with one another over this thing that's occurring, the fact that you can look at videos of people in the middle of Italy, like singing a Cruel Angel's thesis from their apartments, just all together, just singing it together, um, is like the sense of communion that comes out of that, the collective spirit that would come of these people who are all isolated, but nonetheless are able to form this connection and have fun with one another, to be celebratory in the advent of a crisis, is really a beautiful thing to witness. There's a collective human spirit that's being relayed here. And I like that a lot about the coronavirus. But on an individual level, like for me, how it's directly impacted my life has been wholly positive. Because if you remember what I was going on about during the months of December, January, and February, I was terrified of the idea of having to go back to school. I really, really did not want to go back. I had been not going to school each day since the beginning of December, and I figured it was only a matter of time until the people who ran the school figured out what I was doing, that I wasn't getting any work done and I wasn't going to school each day, and that they would like file a complaint or something, or just kick me out. But it turned out to not be that way. It turned out that I had been waiting just the right amount of time for them to not care, and then just the right amount of time for the pandemic to close all of the schools. And so I had went from someone who wanted to take my own life in the middle of December, seriously considering suicide just because of how much I hated going to school every day, how much of a toll going to school was taking on my health, that I had considered not being alive as a better alternative to going to school every day. And that was a thought that I had not had in a very long time. I thought I was away from having regular suicidal thoughts. That was pretty much gone and out of my mind for quite a large span of time. But they were back. They came back as a result of having to be put back in education. And for the month of December, I ended up getting addicted to the pain medicine that I had been prescribed for my kidney stone. They had gave me a whole bunch of pain medicine, hydrocodone, and then when I went to the hospital a second time to have a couple things checked out, they gave me oxycodone. Um, and it was a separate hospital that I got that at, so it wasn't the same people. But so I got all of these pain pills, oxy and hydro, that I just had sort of laying around, and it didn't take that long for my kidney stone pain to go away. And after that point, I just had all of this pain medicine just around after the pain had gone away. And so my thinking was, if I'm this depressed, if I want to kill myself this much, and if going to school is going to be this painful to go back to, then why don't I just take these pills all the time? Like I knew very well that an addiction or a habit would form, and I wasn't using them compulsively by any means. I simply didn't care. I had the capacity for self moderation and control, as I've done with other things in the past. I just didn't care. I didn't care. And so I started using them, like every day. Very quickly, tolerance was building. Very quickly, the good feels were kind of subsiding, and it took a lot more to be able to get the desired effect. But that's what I was doing all the time until a severe physical, well, maybe not severe, but a physical dependence of some kind had formed. And as I was getting off of them, I just started, throwing up. I felt like I had the worst flu I had ever had. I was getting these physical tremors and stuff. It was really unpleasant. But eventually that went away, and it was a product of this horrible school system that I was subjected to. Um, and now, what with COVID-19 keeping all of the schools closed, I certainly don't have to go back to the school. It's great. It's great because I can sit here and I can pursue the things I'm interested in. I can read and it's fun. It's a good time. We got video games here. We got PS2. We got the PS2 here. We got everything I could ever want is in this room. And so I'm really thankful for the coronavirus because going to school was putting me over the edge. I was getting to that point. I was getting to that point where something very dangerous could have happened if I just kept going to school for any longer. And so I'm very thankful. Thank you, COVID-19, for keeping me alive.